Terilyn hired a mechanic to replace her radiator. The new radiator cost $275, but the labor costs were $80 per hour. If the total bill was $515, how many hours did it take the mechanic to install the radiator? They're asking us how many hours it took to install the radiator, so we're going to let that be X. Let the hours, and we call that labor, the work that they did installing it. So let the hours of labor be X. And that's the only unknown, so that's going to be the only let statement. Let the hours of labor be X. Now, there are 3 other numbers in this problem. It's a little bit more complicated. So when we set up the equation is going to be a little bit more involved. We have to think a little bit to figure out how all these numbers end up fitting together in this problem. Now, we know the total bill was $515. So if we add up the different pieces of the bill, the different things we paid for, in the end, that total should be equal to $515. Now let's think about how Terilyn ended up paying for this, what she paid for. It says the new radiator cost $275. So that was one thing she had to pay. She had to pay $275 just for the radiator itself. But it also says that labor costs were $80 per hour. Now, if that was just 1 hour, we would say $275 for the radiator plus $80 for the labor. But it wasn't necessarily 1 hour. It might have been more than that. If it was 2 hours, we would write 80 times 2. If it were 3 hours, we'd write 80 times 3. But we don't know how many hours. We said that it's X hours, so we're going to have to write 80 times X. If it's $80 per hour and they worked X hours, then the amount of money she spent on labor had to be 80 times X, because it's $80 times the number of hours worked. Whenever you see the word per in a problem, it generally means that we're multiplying. If it's $80 per hour, we take $80 and multiply it by the number of hours that it took. So we've got 275 plus 80x equals 515. 275 represents the parts, 80x represents the labor, and 515 is the total. Now we need to get x alone, so we're going to subtract 275 from both sides. If we do that, that gives us 80x on the left, and 515 minus 275 ends up being 240. So we have 80x equals 240, and when we divide both sides by 80 to get x alone, that gives us x equals 3. Going back up to the let statement, we said let the hours of labor be x, but we know this is 3. So we know there were 3 hours of labor. And when they ask how many hours did it take the mechanic to install the radiator, we can say it took the mechanic 3 hours. And that ends up being our final answer.